Forget the popcorn and soda. At this haunted California theater, the real horror begins when the last patron leaves. My night shift comes with chilling secrets and terrifying rules I have no choice but to follow. It started as a part-time job, something simple, something quiet. Just me, a mop, and a century-old cinema that had once been a crown jewel of California's golden age of film. The Regal Crest Theater sits in the heart of downtown Sacramento, its facade worn but dignified, like an old actor who never quite left the stage. Locals whispered that it was haunted, but most people chalked it up to crumbling plaster and old pipes. I didn't believe in ghosts. Not then. The first time I stepped into the building after hours, I noticed something odd. The lights didn't flicker. They pulsed, like the theater was breathing. There was a weight in the air, not heavy like pressure but dense like silence, too still to be natural. It wasn't just emptiness. It was watching. My job was straightforward. Sweep the aisles, mop the sticky floors, clean the bathrooms, and lock up by 5 a.m. It was peaceful, at first, but it didn't take long before the quirks of the place began to reveal themselves. My mop bucket would move slightly between refills. The sound of a film reel spinning would echo through the theater, even though all the equipment was powered down. And sometimes, when I turned to look behind me, I swore someone had just ducked out of sight. The theater has 6 screening rooms, a grand lobby with velvet-lined walls, a spiral staircase leading to the old projection booths, and a maintenance room in the back that feels far colder than the rest of the building. I quickly realized that some places, especially the upper-level projection booths and a long-forgotten storage hallway behind Screen 3, seemed off. The air there was too dry, too cold, too still. My manager, a wiry old man named Greg who had worked the place for decades, gave me a small slip of paper on my second night. It was folded 4 times and stained with coffee rings. "You'll want to keep this," he said, not looking me in the eyes. "Just follow the rules." I thought he was joking, until I read them. Rules for the night janitor. 1. Do not speak aloud after midnight unless absolutely necessary. 2. Do not make eye contact with your reflection in any mirror after 1 a.m. 3. If you hear whispering coming from Screen 4, do not investigate. 4. If a film starts playing by itself, let it finish. Do not interrupt. 5. Always leave a seat open in the center of row D in Screen 2. 6. If you see a child in the lobby after 2 a.m., walk away. 7. The red curtain in the staff break room must remain closed at all times. 8. Never, ever say the name Rosalie. I laughed at first. It read like a prank, the kind of thing old employees pass down to scare the newbies. But Greg's serious expression stuck with me all night. He never cracked a smile. That was the first time I kept my headphones off. I needed to hear everything. The night air inside the Regal Crest is colder than outside, even in the summer. And the building makes noises, but not the normal kind. Doors creak, even when they're locked. Footsteps echo from upstairs projection, booths no one has entered for years. And once, during my 3rd week, I heard an entire audience applauding from behind a locked door. When I opened it, the screen was blank and the seats were empty. On that same night, around 2:45 a.m., I passed the old mirror in the upstairs hallway outside Screen 5. It's mounted to the wall, framed in chipped brass. I'd passed it dozens of times before, but this time I made a mistake. I glanced into it. My reflection was standing still, but I wasn't. I just scratched the side of my neck, but the man in the mirror had his arms at his sides. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. The reflection's mouth began to twitch into a grin, one that didn't belong on my face. I turned away instantly and walked, no, ran, down the stairs, not stopping until I reached the safety of the lobby. From then on, I took the rules seriously. Greg never explained the list, and I never asked. I wasn't ready for answers. The strangest part of my shift is the time between 3 o'clock and 4 a.m. The dead hour, as some of the old-timers used to call it. That's when things change. The lights dim slightly, even though the system logs no changes. The shadows stretch longer across the floors, and the silence becomes almost alive. On one of those nights, the film and screen one began playing by itself. An old reel of Nosferatu, which hadn't been shown in months. The projector flickered to life, and the opening scene lit up the empty screen. I nearly walked in to shut it off, thinking maybe some timer glitch had triggered it. But I remember the fourth rule. If a film starts playing by itself, let it finish. So I stood outside the room and waited. I didn't hear music. I heard voices, faint at first, like murmurs layered beneath the soundtrack. Whispers in a language I didn't recognize. They seemed to pour out of the speakers and seep into the hallway. When the film ended, the room went dark again, and the voices stopped. The next morning, the reel was no longer in the projector. I searched for it, but it was gone. After that, I started seeing her, just for a second, out of the corner of my eye. A woman in an old-style usher uniform, red velvet vest, long skirt, pale hands. She stands in the doorway of screen 4 sometimes, head slightly tilted, watching. I've never looked directly at her. I don't want to know what happens if I do. Sometimes she appears in the mirror by the staff bathroom, just behind me. She doesn't move, just watches. The worst part, when I try to catch her reflection, she's gone. But the air still smells like rose perfume, faint and cloying. A week ago, something new happened. As I mopped the main lobby, a low growl rumbled from behind the concession stand. It wasn't a mechanical hum. It was guttural, like something was angry. I walked around the counter slowly, gripping the mop like a weapon. There was nothing there, except the popcorn machine was on, kernels popping violently, even though I hadn't plugged it in. The machine shook, rattled, and then stopped. Inside was a small, charred handprint on the inner glass, like a child's. I didn't touch it. When I told Greg, he only nodded grimly. "It's starting earlier this year," he muttered. I asked what he meant. He didn't answer. The last thing I'll mention, for tonight, is the red curtain in the staff break room. It's small, barely 3 feet wide, hanging on a rod like a decorative drape. It covers an old fuse box that doesn't seem to connect to anything anymore. One night, I found it pulled back. Behind it, something had etched words into the wall. "Rosalie watches." I recovered it immediately. My hands were shaking. The air was thick with that same rose scent. The mop bucket tipped over behind me by itself. I never said the name aloud. The Regal Crest is a theater frozen in time. The chandeliers hang like relics of another era. Dust clings to every velvet curtain. And the spirits that inhabit it aren't just stories. They're routines, as embedded in the building as the plaster and beams. They live here. And now, so do I, in the space between screenings, between shadows. I've learned to respect them. Because once you take the night shift here, you don't work alone. The rules aren't just suggestions. They're survival instructions, quiet, ominous commandments etched into the fabric of the Regal Crest Theater. I didn't realize how serious they were until the first time I broke one. And after that, I never broke another. It was a slow Thursday night. The last screening wrapped up at 11:32 p.m., and by midnight, the theater was mine. I made my rounds with a quiet efficiency, mop in one hand, flashlight in the other. The old projector bulbs overhead buzzed softly, casting long shadows on the red velvet carpet. It was too easy to believe I was alone, but the building had a way of reminding me I wasn't. I had grown used to the weight of invisible eyes, the subtle shifts in air pressure as I passed certain doors, and I had made a habit of checking the rule list every night, just to be sure. Not that I ever forgot them anymore. But that night, I made a mistake. A simple one. I was in the restroom near screen 3, finishing up when my phone buzzed in my back pocket. A text from my brother popped up on the screen. Something dumb about football scores. I snorted and muttered, "He never shuts up," before stuffing the phone away and heading out into the hallway. I didn't even realize I had broken rule number 1. Do not speak aloud after midnight unless absolutely necessary. At first, nothing happened. The hallway was just as it always was, dimly lit, lined with fading film posters, and far too quiet. But then I noticed something odd. A light under the door to the old break room began to flicker, as if someone inside was pacing. I hadn't been in there yet, and I knew it should have been empty. I slowly approached, dread sinking into my stomach like wet cement. The closer I got, the colder the air became, until it felt like walking through a refrigerator. The flickering stopped just as I touched the doorknob. Then came the whisper. It was soft, feminine, right behind my left ear. "You heard me." I spun around so fast I nearly slipped on the tile, but no one was there. Nothing but silence. And in that silence, something worse. The distinct scent of rose perfume. Rosalie. I didn't go into the break room. I turned around and walked back to the lobby without looking back. My heart thudded in my ears, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. From that night on, I treated the rules as law. Each rule is a lock, one that holds back whatever else lives inside the regal crest. I've spent long nights trying to decipher them, and while I haven't uncovered all their meanings, I've experienced enough to understand why they exist. Rule number 2, do not make eye contact with your reflection in any mirror after 1 a.m. This one, I obey religiously. The mirror by the upstairs hall has become a boundary, a gateway. Something peers back through it that isn't me. It mimics, yes, but with a delay, a smile that lingers, a tilt of the head when I stand perfectly still. The janitor who worked before me, a guy named Arturo, once joked in the break room that the mirror gave him the creeps. That was his last night. No one's seen him since. Greg just said, he probably broke rule 2. We never speak of him now. Rule number 3. If you hear whispering coming from screen 4, do not investigate. This one I broke only once, and only halfway. The whispering began softly, like a breeze through tall grass. I was sweeping the hallway when I heard my name being called in a child's voice. Aiden, Aiden, come here. Something inside me reacted instinctively. I knew it wasn't real. The voice was too calm, too sweet, and there were no children left in the building. Still, my feet moved without my permission, drawing me toward the door of screen 4. The moment my hand touched the doorknob, I felt something slide beneath my skin. A chill that wasn't temperature, it was presence. Like someone was threading their fingers through my bones. I yanked my hand back and staggered away from the door, heart hammering in my chest. Behind it, the whispering rose into low, muffled giggles. That door stayed closed the rest of the night. And the next. Rule number 4. If a film starts playing by itself, let it finish. Do not interrupt. I still remember the night Casablanca played in Screen 2. The projector flicked on just past 3 a.m., with no cue, no hand to start it. I stood in the hallway outside, too afraid to go in. The film ran perfectly, grainy, black and white, with all the old flickers of dust and film burn. But the dialogue was wrong. It sounded like it was being whispered by dozens of voices at once, layer on top of one another. Lines spoken in reverse. Others repeated over and over. And over all of it, the name Rosalie chanted softly, over and over again. I'll let finish. I stood there, frozen, until the screen went dark. Rule number 5. Always leave a seat open in the center of row D in Screen 2. It's reserved, apparently. I once accidentally stacked some cleaning supplies on it while doing an early sweep. No big deal, I thought. It's just a seat. The power in the entire theater went out. Not just the theater. The block. When the lights came back on, my supplies were gone, replaced by a single dried rose, pressed flat against the cushion. The stem was brittle. The petals looked burned. Rule number 6. If you see a child in the lobby after 2 a.m., walk away. This one terrifies me. I've seen her 3 times. The first time, she was sitting cross-legged on the floor, staring at the candy counter. Her hair was long, tangled, and soaked as if she'd just stepped out of a pool. Her skin was pale, and she didn't blink. She didn't move until I turned around, and then, in the reflection of the glass doors, I saw her crawl toward me on all fours, too fast, too quiet. I walked away. I didn't run. The rules didn't say to run. The second time, she stood by the bathroom mirror, one hand pressed to the glass. My reflection blinked. She didn't. The third time, she was behind the popcorn machine, just her eyes visible above the counter. Always watching. Rule number 7. The red curtain in the staff break room must remain closed at all times. That curtain, there's something behind it. Something alive. I hear scratching some nights. Once I saw the curtain move like someone was breathing behind it. I don't touch it. Ever. And if I pass the break room and find it moved, I pull it back into place and leave immediately. The one time I forgot to close it, the fuse box behind it was open, and my name was carved into the metal. Not scratched. Carved. Like someone had spent hours doing it with their nails. I closed the curtain and haven't spoken of it since. Rule number 8. Never, ever say the name Rosalie. This one is the most dangerous. I've never said her name aloud. Not even when talking to Greg. No one says it. But the name is everywhere. Etched into the undersides of theater seats. Burned into the edges of film reels. Scribbled in faded pencil inside drawers in the manager's office. I think she was real once. A person. A soul that never left. But the way she exists now, she's become something else. Not just a ghost, but a force. And I believe the rules were written to contain her. Every night, I carry that list in my pocket like it's scripture. I recite the rules under my breath before each shift begins, a litany of survival. I obey them like my life depends on it, because it does. Working here is like dancing through a minefield. The silence isn't just empty. It's full, charged, waiting. And the rules aren't just protection. They're the thin wall between routine and chaos, between order and whatever Rosalie has become. I don't pretend to understand her, but I respect her, fear her, obey her. Because in this theater, the living are not in charge after midnight. We are guests, and the dead have very strict rules for their visitors. The first real breach didn't happen because I broke a rule. It happened because something or someone decided it was time. For weeks, I followed every line of that cursed rule list like it was my last lifeline. And in truth, it was. But the problem with rules is that they only protect you as long as everyone plays along. And one night, something in the theater stopped playing. It started in the projection room above screen one. That place always felt wrong to me. The smell of burnt metal lingered there, even though the old projectors hadn't worked in decades. The windows were fogged over from the inside, and the light bulbs died faster in that room than anywhere else in the building. I had never seen anything there until that night. I had just finished mopping the main hallway and was dumping the dirty water when I heard footsteps overhead. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Too heavy for a rat. Too measured for a draft. I stared up at the ceiling tiles, trying to calculate the layout, and realized with a sinking feeling that the only space directly above me was the projection room. I went up. I know, I shouldn't have, but something about the footsteps compelled me. I moved slowly, each creaking stairboard announcing my approach. The door to the room stood slightly ajar, trembling gently on its hinges like it was trying to breathe. I pushed it open. There, near the far window, stood a figure. Male, tall, pale, dressed in an old usher's uniform, faded and scorched along the edges, like he'd walked through fire. He wasn't moving, just standing there, gazing out the fogged-up glass. I didn't speak. I didn't breathe. I just stared. Then, as if sensing me, he began to turn. The motion was jerky, like a film skipping frame by frame. His head twitched around in a series of snaps. The last twitch brought him face to face with me. He didn't have eyes, just dark, sunken sockets that pulsed faintly, like something breathing inside them. I backed away slowly, hand groping blindly for the doorknob. And that's when he took a step toward me, his foot hitting the wooden floor with a thud that echoed too loud for the size of the room. Then he whispered, "You left her seat filled." I slammed the door shut and ran. I didn't stop until I was outside, under the cold moonlight, panting against the brick wall of the alley behind the theater. It was 3:17 a.m. I hadn't touched anything in Screen 2 that night, but I hadn't checked either. The next morning, I walked the rows before the first showing. Something, had stuffed a popcorn bucket into the center seat of row D. It was still half full. There was a single, scorched rose placed gently on top. From that night forward, the line between observer and participant began to blur. One evening, I passed by the glass panel on the lobby doors and saw someone standing outside in the fog. Just standing. Their face was obscured by shadow, but I could see the outline of an arm. They raised a hand slowly and began to tap, not on the glass, but on the air itself. Tap, tap, tap. I blinked, and they were gone. But the tapping didn't stop. That's when the shadows started moving. I don't mean in the vague, spooky sense. I mean literally, shadows behaving independently of the objects casting them. I'd mop the floor and see my own silhouette stretching off in the wrong direction. I'd wave, but the shadow wouldn't move. Sometimes it would turn its head, my head, and smile. Once, I left my flashlight on the counter in the snack bar while I went to refill the mop bucket. When I came back, the flashlight beam was pointed toward the floor, and a child's drawing had been sketched in the dust. A stick figure holding hands with a much taller figure in a dress. Above it were 3 words etched in the dust. You said her name. I hadn't. Not out loud. But sometimes the mind wanders. And sometimes the building listens. The strangest encounter I've ever had was in the old film vault. It's rarely used now. Just a damp, dim room filled with locked cabinets of archived reels and dust-caked boxes. Greg never mentioned in training. I only found it because I got lost chasing what I thought was a rat near the back of the building. The vault door was already open. It shouldn't have been. Inside, the temperature dropped to freezing. My breath fogged the air in front of me. I turned on my flashlight, and the beam flickered, almost like it was fighting against something in the dark. Rows of old reels lined the shelves, each labeled with handwritten titles and fading ink. But one caught my eye, not because of what it said, but because of what it didn't. It was unlabeled, just a rusted tin reel case sitting dead center on the floor, as if someone had placed it there for me. I stepped closer. As I bent down, I noticed something etched into the floorboards beneath it, words carved violently, like with a key or a blade. I showed her. A loud click echoed behind me, the vault door swinging shut. I lunged for it, grabbed the handle, and yanked it open. On the other side stood Greg. He stared at me for a long, tense moment before stepping aside to let me out. He didn't ask what I was doing. He didn't comment on the open vault. But before he turned to leave, he whispered, "Don't ever go in there again." I didn't ask why. I was too afraid of the answer. Lately, things have grown more aggressive. Sometimes, the seats creak when no one's in them. Other times, I hear laughter, an entire crowd, applauding an invisible performance. I once entered Screen 3 to find the screen playing security footage of me. For moments before, it showed me walking into the room I was currently standing in. I unplugged the projector. It kept playing. Then there are the voices. Not whispers anymore. Voices. Calling to me. Begging. Crying. One in particular, a woman's voice, haunts the stairs leading up to the old balcony. I hear her sobbing softly, her voice breaking in the middle of a word I can never make out. I followed it a few times, always stopping at the top landing. There, the door is sealed shut with chains. I don't know who locked it, but I know better than to try and open it. I once touched the doorknob. It was slick with something warm. That night, my name appeared on every screen in the theater. Just 3 words, over and over. Aiden. She remembers. I tried telling Greg. He only gave me a long stare, then said, "She always remembers." When I asked who she was, he simply replied, "You already know." The line between dream and reality has started to fray. I sleep during the day, but I wake up with sticky theater floor residue on my shoes. I find ticket stubs in my pockets from shows I didn't watch. And last week, I opened my fridge to find a half-eaten box of Junior Mints. I hate Junior Mints. Someone, or something, is crossing over, and I fear the rules are no longer enough to keep it at bay. I once thought the ghosts in this place were bound by memory, that they replayed the past like old film reels looping through eternity. But I was wrong. They watch, they listen, and now they respond. The regal crest doesn't want me gone. It wants me changed. It wants me rewritten, and I think it's working. Before the haunting, before the whispers and the rules, before Rosalie ever became a name spoken in fear, the Regal Crest Theater was simply a dream, a palace of light and sound. It opened its doors in 1931, a grand beacon of Hollywood's golden age nestled in downtown Sacramento. Marble floors, a chandelier made of real crystal imported from Venice, gold-plated fixtures. Rumor had it that even Charlie Chaplin walked its halls once during a promotional tour. But like all things too beautiful, it came at cost, and the stain it left behind never fully faded. The story isn't in any history book. You won't find it online or printed in any archive. The only reason I know it at all is because Greg finally told me, his eyes bloodshot, his voice hollow, as though the telling of it aged him right in front of me. "You won't understand the rules," he asked me one night, his voice barely a whisper. "Then you need to understand her." It happened in 1948. Back then, the theaters still used carbon arc projectors, and ticket takers wore pressed uniforms. One of them was a girl named Rosalie Hart. She wasn't famous, but she should have been. Everyone said she had a face made for the silver screen, big brown eyes, porcelain skin, a voice so soft it made grown men lean in closer just to hear her. She was sweet, shy, worked double shifts without complaining. But more than anything, she loved movies. Greg said she used to sneak into Screen 2 during her breaks, just to watch her favorite scenes again and again. She even had a favorite seat, center of row D. Back then, there was a young projectionist named Eli. Quiet, awkward, kept mostly to himself, but he watched her constantly. Greg said he'd stare down at the lobby through the projection room's little window whenever she passed. At first, no one noticed. It was innocent, admirable, even, until it wasn't. One night, Rosalie went missing. There wasn't much of an investigation. Her parents assumed she'd run away to Hollywood to chase her dreams. She'd always talked about becoming an actress, after all. But Greg remembered the night it happened, and he remembered something no one else thought to mention. Eli had asked Rosalie to stay late that evening. Said there was a special film he wanted to show her, a private screening in Screen 2, a reel no one else had ever seen. Greg didn't know what happened after that. But the next morning, Eli was found hanging in the projection room, his body swaying from the metal scaffold, the reel of film looped around his neck. His eyes were missing, gouged clean out. No one ever found Rosalie's body, but people started to notice strange things. Her locker wouldn't stay shut. Her name reappeared in the time cards long after she'd vanished. And during late screenings, some patrons swore they saw her face reflected in the projection glass, smiling, waiting. And then the first accident happened. A janitor tripped in the maintenance tunnel and broke his neck. They found him staring up at the ceiling, a single rose clutched in his hand. After that, a string of incidents followed. A film critic collapsed in the lobby, clutching his chest after claiming he saw someone standing on the screen during a black and white romance. A manager was found in the break room, sobbing uncontrollably, whispering the same name over and over, Rosalie. Then he carved it into the break room table before quitting the next day. The owners changed. The staff turned over. But the hauntings never stopped. That's when the rules began. No one remembers who wrote them first. Greg said it was a woman named Margaret, an old usher who claimed Rosalie spoke to her through the film reels. She wrote down the rules in a shaky hand and tacked them to the bulletin board in the back office. The rules changed over the years. New ones were added after particularly bad nights. A few were removed. But rule number 8 remained untouched. Never, ever say the name Rosalie. Because once you do, she remembers you. Greg kept a folder in the manager's office. Locked. Hidden. I found it 3 nights ago. I shouldn't have opened it. But the dreams had started. Long, vivid nightmares of the theater burning. Of rows of empty seats screaming. Of a girl in a velvet vest with a smile too wide and too cold to be real. Inside the folder were old photos, newspaper clippings, yellowed employee rosters. But at the very bottom, there was a photo I can't forget. It was of a girl, Rosalie, I'm sure of it, standing in front of Screen 2 with a bouquet of roses in her arms. Her smile looked genuine until you noticed her eyes. Even in black and white, they looked wrong. Too dark, like the ink had spilled into them, like something was already there, looking out. There was also a page torn from what looked like a diary. The handwriting was cramped and erratic, like it had been written in a panic. She watches me through the screen. Not from it, through it. She knows I said her name. I didn't mean to. It just slipped out. But now she's in the reflections, in the static. She's in the film. The last line was scribbled so hard it tore the paper. The movies are how she moves. It all made a sick kind of sense. The old films playing themselves. The scenes changing. The voices in reverse. She wasn't just a spirit haunting the theater. She was embedded in it. Etched into the film stock, bleeding through the reel, projecting herself into our world frame by frame. That's why rule number 4 exists. If a film starts playing by itself, let finish. Interrupting her performance is a death sentence. And the worst part, the films are multiplying. A week ago, Greg found a new reel in the break room fridge, wrapped in plastic, labeled, for Aiden. He didn't give it to me. He burned it in the alley out back. The next night, the projectors refused to turn on, not even manually. Greg said she was angry. The staff won't talk about her anymore, not even in whispers. Everyone who stays past midnight knows the truth, but they pretend not to. Even the new hires learn quickly to play dumb. Denial is safer. But I've noticed things escalating. The boundaries are thinner. The ghosts bolder. I found footprints in the carpet one morning. Barefoot. Small. Leading from the break room to the edge of screen 2. They ended at row D. A rose sat on the seat. Wilted. Wet. The fire exits unbolt themselves now. Even when triple locked. The mirror in the upstairs hall is cracked again, after being replaced twice. And yesterday, I walked into the bathroom to find every faucet running full blast, steam curling like fingers toward the ceiling. In the mirror, I saw not one reflection, but 2. Me and her. Rosalie, behind me, not smiling, just watching. Greg hasn't shown up for 3 nights. His office is dark. His locker untouched. But the weirdest thing? The rule list is gone from the bulletin board. In its place, scrawled in red ink, is a new message. No more rules. The show must go on. Whatever she is now, Rosalie isn't content with shadows anymore. She wants the spotlight. And I think I'm next. I arrived at the Regal Crest last night, but something felt off the moment I unlocked the front doors. There was no usual hum from the lobby lights flickering to life. No comforting creak of old floorboards groaning beneath their age. The building felt hushed, like it was waiting. I checked the time, 11:58 p.m. 2 minutes until the rules would apply. But the list was gone. The bulletin board was bare. The pinned corner where the paper used to hang still fluttered slightly, like the list had only just been removed. I searched the office, the break room, even the upstairs projection booth. Nothing. No rules. No Greg. And then I saw the letter. It was waiting for me on the concession counter, folded precisely in thirds, my name written on the front in a shaky red ink. Aiden, forgive me. I try to keep her contained, but the reels were too many. She's in everything now. Every mirror, every screen, every shadow. I burned what I could, but the theater won't let me leave. She's locked me in. Don't try to be the hero. Just leave. Walk out and never come back. Gee, I crushed the note in my fist, heart thudding like a drumbeat in my throat. I should have listened. I should have walked out right then and there. But something stopped me. A sound. Film rolling. Screen 2. I didn't need to go in to know what seed had just been filled. I should have obeyed the rules, even if they were gone. The hallway to screen 2 stretched long and narrow, darker than usual. The overhead bulbs were dimmed low, and the emergency exit signs glowed red, bathing the walls in the color of blood. I stepped carefully, as if the floor might cave beneath me. As I approached the theater doors, I heard it, soft music playing from the other side. A tune I couldn't place, something old, jazzy, a warped record looping again and again. It faded into whispers. I pushed the door open. Rows of red velvet seats stretched into shadows, all empty, except one. Center of row D. A girl sat there with her back to me, long dark hair cascading down the shoulders of her usher uniform. The velvet vest faded, but unmistakable. She was watching the screen. Only there was no movie playing. Just static, flickering. Then, suddenly my face filled the screen. Me, standing right there in the doorway. Only, in the film version, I was smiling. And behind me, in the frame, Rosalie stood close enough to touch my shoulder. The real me turned. Nothing. But when I turned back to the screen, the film me began to bleed from the eyes. The static grew louder. The girl in row D stood slowly. My breath caught. She didn't turn, not all at once, just her head, slightly over her shoulder. Her face remained obscured by hair and shadow, but I could feel her watching. Her hand reached out and pointed to the seat beside her. An invitation. I don't remember sitting down, but I did. The room seemed to breathe. The temperature dropped. My skin prickled with goosebumps as the air filled with the sharp, too sweet scent of roses. The film on screen changed again. Now it was a little girl playing hopscotch in the lobby. She was alone, until someone approached her. A man. He leaned down, whispered something in her ear. She froze. The next frame cut suddenly. Her lying still in the center of row D, a velvet vest soaked in blood. I turned to Rosalie. She was staring at me. Her eyes weren't dark voids like the others had seen. They were burning, red, wild, alive. Her mouth opened slowly, too slowly, like her jaw had forgotten how. And then she spoke. You broke the rules. Her voice was layered, hundreds of whispers tangled together, speaking in unison, like a chorus of the dead. She reached out and touched my hand. It was cold, and somehow wet. The static roared louder. The screen flashed white. Every seat in the theater filled at once with faceless silhouettes, their heads turning in sync to stare at me. I screamed and stood, stumbling over the aisle, knocking over popcorn buckets that hadn't been there moments before. Hands reached from the seats, trying to grab my ankles. One caught my pant leg and burned my skin on contact. I broke free and bolted. The door slammed behind me, but I didn't look back. I ran until I hit the alleyway behind the theater, collapsing into the gravel, gasping for air. The theater behind me was silent. Dead silent. I didn't go back tonight. For the first time in months, I'm not walking through those doors. But here's the part that scares me more than anything else. When I woke up this morning, there was a rose on my nightstand. Fresh, wet, and beside it, a folded movie ticket stub. Regal Crest Theater, Screen 2, CD4, midnight showing. There's no return address. No explanation, just the stub, and a note scribbled on the back. The show must go on. So what do I think? I think Rosalie was never meant to be understood. She isn't evil in the way people expect. She's grief, pain, memory caught in a loop. I don't think she wants revenge. I think she wants to be remembered. And the theater is her shrine. She's not the only one there. There are others. Trapped souls, flickering like scratched film frames on an endless reel. They replay their deaths again and again, bound by the rules they couldn't follow. or didn't. If you're ever offered a job working graveyard shift in a theater, don't take it. And if you do, follow the rules. Every one of them. Because they aren't just guidelines. They're your script. And if you go off script, Rosalie will rewrite the ending.